Hey, everybody. Welcome in. I'm going to give it a minute or so for folks to join, but while we wait, drop in the chat where you're calling in from. I'm Brian, I'm developer relations engineer here at Kilo, calling in from New York City. As always, we've got Ari here from New York, and we'll give it a minute and get started in just a second. And this is our third webinar in a row, third day in a row we're doing a webinar. So I'm curious if anyone went to or attended the previous one or two, or if anyone's been to all three, that'd be incredible. But yeah, we'll get started in just a minute and just give some time for people to join. Patrick, good to see you again. Wow, the Yukon. Seeing Manhattan. So Ari and I are both on Manhattan as well. I'm Upper East Side. Ari is Upper West Side. Hey, I see Carlo's message about the Kilo open source sponsorship program. Yeah, I'll follow up with you. I just saw your message, and we can also talk about it at the end. But yeah, thanks for participating. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. So today is a special one. We've got a guest joining from Anthropic's applied AI team, Marius, who's going to be answering a bunch of questions about, how to get the most out of Claude models, especially in Kilo. So this is going to be mostly a discussion style Q&A, which I'm really excited about. But before we dive in, I want to give a little context about, why we're doing this and what these models are and why they matter so much to what we're building here at Kilo and what people are building with Kilo. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick. And of course, as promised, as always, we're going to pick 5 random people to get $50 of Kilo credits who attended the webinar. Plus, we're giving out some really great Kilo t-shirts after the show as well. So stick around and you'll be entered into that giveaway. But if you've been following the AI landscape at all over the past few months, you know that Anthropic has been on an absolute tear. They released Claude Sonnet 4.5 back in September and then followed it up with Opus 4.5 in late November. And both of these models are, as I'm sure legitimately best in class for coding and agentic work. And I think what's interesting, and maybe what we're going to dig into today, is that they're not just necessarily, good model in Sonnet and better model in Opus. They're maybe optimized for different things, and knowing when to use which one is kind of an art form at this point. So I just want to give you a quick rundown. Sonnet, oops. So Claude Sonnet 4.5 came out in September, and Anthropic called it the best coding model in the world at the time. State of the art on SWE Bench, which is a benchmark that people use to evaluate real world software engineering tasks. It's got a 200K, or actually, I think slightly bigger context window. It's priced at $3 input and $15 output per million tokens. So, very capable, very cost effective. And then Opus 4.5 dropped in November, and it kind of took things to another level, right? It's now the top performer on SWE Bench verified. It's got what Anthropic calls market leading performance on computer use and agentic tasks. And here's the interesting part. It's actually uses fewer tokens to reach the same or better outcomes in certain scenarios. So, maybe a little smarter and more efficient, which is not always the way it goes, right? So Opus is priced at $5 per million input tokens, 25 output per million tokens. So it's a bit more expensive, but not by a crazy amount, especially when you factor in that efficiency and reasoning gain. And why does this matter to us at Kilo? Well, here's the thing. Kilo processes a lot of tokens via the Claude models, like a lot. Like right now we're seeing about 14 billion tokens a day going through Opus and about 16 billion going through Sonnet. So collectively, that's over 30 billion on just the Claude models alone. And because Kilo is open model, right, you can choose from over 500 models and switch between them whenever you want. We see a really interesting distribution of how people are using these models in practice. Some people are all in on Opus for everything. Others use Sonnet as their daily driver and then only pull in Opus for really heavy lifting. And some folks are doing really clever things with all of our different specialized modes in Kilo, where they're using, different models for different types of tasks. And that's really what we want to explore today. Like, what does Anthropic's own applied AI team, who's joining us in just a minute, recommend? When should you reach for Opus? when is Sonnet actually the better choice? How do you structure your tools and prompts to get, the most reliable outputs? And these are all questions that really matter when you're actually building things. So I want to pull on Ari and Marius. So Ari's from Kilo team and Marius from the Anthropic team, and we'll go ahead and start discussing these topics. So if you guys want to join real quick. Hey Ari.
Hey.
How are you?
Hello.
Hey Marius, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for this.
Really awesome to be here. Thanks Brian for having us.
Yeah, of course. I'm just going to actually stop sharing my screen so we can just chat. But the first thing I want to talk about is kind of what I alluded to earlier, which is that strategic model usage of these different models. So I'm curious, how does the Anthropic applied AI team and people at Anthropic recommend deciding between using Opus or a similar, higher end model for complex tasks, and then Sonnet or a similar like mid-range model for tasks like coding and general execution?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when I think about this, maybe our team internally, I don't know if it's the best team to model, because we really don't care about cost internally.
Right.
We do want to be augmented as much as possible, and we think that spending our own personal time is always more valuable than whatever you can spend on these tokens. Yes, I work at Anthropic now, but in the past I had my own startup, like 3 people startup, and we had the same mindset. I would say I would spend no matter what on tokens to just to leverage my own personal time. So maybe that's something that people should keep in mind. But there is still a trade-off for us. There's the task speed.
Right.
When you think about it, Opus is much slower than a Haiku.
Right.
And depending what code you want to output, if it's something a little bit more complex, or if it's just front-end code where there's a lot of React tokens or TypeScript tokens that maybe don't require the state-of-the-art model, I would say you would probably don't want to wait for an Opus to churn that, and maybe like put Haiku to write that or write the tests.
Right. And then if you don't have to worry about costs, then that kind of opens up an interesting new dialogue where you can actually use any model and you get like a more objective look at what their strengths are. That's interesting.
And what I understand about Sonnet is that like Sonnet 4.5 is a hybrid reasoning model. Is that right?
What do you mean by hybrid?
So that it's actually kind of trying to optimize faster responses with deeper thinking automatically.
I don't think I'm aware of that. There is a knob that you can tune where you can instruct a model to use a certain budget for reasoning. Maybe that's something that you're thinking of.
Yeah. So another thing I think we're curious about is like, what are the key trade-offs, for example, latency, cost, or quality, that Kilo developers should consider when, switching between different Claude models?
Yeah. I would say there's this pattern that has emerged right now where in a multi-agent system, you have the orchestrator and you have like the agents where you delegate tasks to. I think this has been a successful pattern for at least the past 6 months. And in this scenario, obviously you want a very, very smart orchestrator to come up with a plan that is detailed enough for faster model to implement on.
Right.
So if you're really looking for that staff architect at your company, like staff AI architect, are probably going to use Opus for that. And then when it comes to generating code or even doing code reviews, there's a lot of coding tools or coding agent companies that are straight up using Haiku, not even going to Sonnet, just because Haiku was trained as a coding model. Maybe a lot of people don't know that. But it was when Haiku was trained, coding was like one of the top priorities. So it wasn't like, hey, we're gonna model Flash or something that is like very, very fast, low latency. We actually want like a decent coding model that outputs at a very high speed.
Right.
It seems like, I know all of the models have been popular for the debug mode in Kilo, and so maybe that's part of why. Right, is that there's sort of the capabilities depending on how big the project is.
Yeah, and for the gnarly debugging, we hear that people love the GPT-5, very high thinking, and it does spend a lot of time, thinking for 2 minutes or 5 minutes straight to get the answer. A lot of folks that I talked to and asked them, have you tried Opus 4.5 on it? Like sometimes the answer is no. So I would just give that a go and dial that thinking budget all the way to maybe 32,000 tokens and see like the results there. So for the gnarly debugging cases, I would definitely use an Opus with a high thinking budget.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think another thing that we kind of would like to explore is leveraging, Anthropic's capabilities for external interactions and complex workflows. So could you maybe walk us through the best practices for structuring tools and function signatures to like maximize reliability and minimize hallucinations when using native tool calling with Anthropic models in Kilo? Because I've seen that sort of question a lot from our users.
Yeah. When I think of tools, it reminds me of like public APIs or public API specs.
Right.
I come from like a traditional software engineering background, and I was probably using the Stripe API, right? And I was reading the docs there and like trying to figure out how to use it. And I don't know, maybe the developers spend enough time to write the description of the public API, but most of the times they haven't. Although Stripe API was still the best documentation. But back in the day, this like didn't matter as much as it matters now. So if you take that and translate it into like tool descriptions, I feel like a lot of time that you should invest is not only writing the functionality of the tool, but also writing the description, because that will kind of make it or break it whether the model is doing the right thing or not. So like simple things like have clear names for your tools, or make sure that you provide examples. Make sure that when you return an error, you return a reason why the error was there, so that the model can keep making progress. I think those are like just very basic things that are rehearsed over and over, but people still don't do it. So having that habit and having the mindset of like maintaining the tool once you put it out there, because things can change, that can go a long way.
I know we're looking at ways just to set more reminders when people are using tool calling, right, around exactly those guidelines, because I mean, it's the same thing with skills, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's like it needs to the simpler and clearer, the more effective it's
clear. Don't have overlapping functionality across tools. Like if you have two tools that do the same thing or similar things, it's going to be very hard for the model to choose which one to pick.
And how do you think about sequential tool calling, which is sort of related?
I think sequential tool calling, I guess I'm a big fan of parallel tool calling, right? So when I think like sequential tool calling is like have a reason why there has to be chains in the tool calls, but as much as possible push you to parallelize, because these models can issue several up to 30, 50 tool calls at the same time, and obviously things will be much faster if you do so. But I think what you're asking is like how does that behave in like a very long running session? Maybe that's like a question that can be answered here.
Yeah.
I think what you have to like focus on is guiding the model to get back on the right track if it kind of derails.
Right.
So having like a really good verifying step at given times, like a verification tool that you call, could be a hook or could be something in the system prompt that gives you like feedback on where you're at and how you should get back on track. I think that's super important. And even instructions, I've seen people in the tool results would also include instructions for what to do next, or like how for the model on how to behave next given that result of the tool. So maybe those are the two kind of secret sauce.
Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, and kind of, you know, stemming off of that, does the Anthropic team have a way that they think about managing like the memory or context of those long conversations? Or like I know you said you're a fan of parallel tool calling, but where maybe there is some sequential complex tool use going on over a long horizon task?
Yeah, there was something in our initial blog post, I think when we launched Sonnet 4.5, and we run a lot of experiments with long-running tasks of like how to deal with memory.
Right.
And the observations there was, I guess, were twofold. One, have some kind of like initializer that will create the memory structure in a way that can be iterated on. So different tasks have, if you can totally let the model just write in the Markdown file, right? That's the easiest and the quickest approach. But the more you structure that file in a JSON or I don't know, YAML, whatever you prefer, to be in line with the progress that you want to see on a given task, the better the model is going to perform. So one is have that structure, and two, kind of instruct the model in such a way that it will make updates to that structure.
Totally.
That makes sense. And so, you know, on a kind of related topic, how do you think about token efficiency? We've seen some interesting blog posts from Anthropic about sort of almost being surprised at the the rate of improvement in efficiency over the last, especially even just the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we were surprised as well, and I think we publish that story as much as we can on Twitter and our socials. But the fact that, which is kind of obvious, that the less errors you make, the faster you're going to get to the answer. And calling tools and reasoning in between tools adds a lot of tokens. So if you have a model that makes fewer mistakes, like an Opus 4.5, you're gonna see fewer errors and fewer tool calls, and therefore fewer tokens. So that's why it's very interesting to get to a state where you measure the token cost per task, although it's also hard, rather than per turn or per prompt.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I kind of want to shift gears to another topic that I think has been very popular in the Kilo world, but definitely in Anthropic's world, which is that we recently added support for agent skills in Kilo. So how do you think, or how should Kilo developers think about, you know, best practices for those skills MD files to be referenced by the Claude models?
Yeah, totally. I love skills there. I love the simplicity of it. I actually, we put a webinar just on skill, like 1 hour talking about skills.
Oh, wow.
And it's not rocket science, right? It's just a very simple file that you write. And I was talking to a startup, I think it's December, November, and we're talking about skills with them, and they realized they also like build the same thing internally, like independently from us. Yeah, and it's like, oh wow, you guys build skills. That's awesome. it's not hard to reach that conclusion. But just to give a recap of what skills are or where they're powerful is skills are just more context that you can put in a system prompt, but you don't want to put in a system prompt because it's going to pollute the whole thing. So you want to add it in a prompt when needed. So it's like on-demand kind of instructions that you bring in. And the way you bring that context in is through the skill description. So skill description is the tool description, very, very similar. It tells the model when to trigger that skill. And that's still, like, it's not fully solved. Like, we see the model like under triggering on some skills. So like iterate as much as you can on that description, make sure that, that the model triggers it at the right time. But once the skill is triggered, then you get into this skill.md file, and there's a lot of like instructions and maybe references to other files or to scripts that you have, you know, on your folder, and that's where the magic happens. I see like skills can be used in two ways. One is just more specialized knowledge. So, for example, if you we have like the whole Office suite of skills. We have like the PDF skill, Office, DocX, PowerPoint, and so on. But if you think of your code, maybe you have something like a skill for a particular component in your code, or a particular kind of framework that you use. And maybe you don't need it at all times, but when you do need it, you have it there. So it's just extra knowledge that the model can easily digest. Alongside with scripts, right? Because maybe there's something that you do all the time, and instead of having the model write that script all the time, you just write it once, save it in the skill, and then like kind of leads to this question of maintainability of like, how do you maintain that skill? How do you keep it relevant? And I had to go through some phases of that with some skills that I put together, and it's just maintaining code.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and the more the more you add, the more to maintain. I mean, that's how it goes, right? And so it sounds like you're suggesting that to get started with skills, people should kind of take a look at what other people have already built. Don't try to just do it from scratch. And okay.
Totally, and use the model to do it. Like, one favorite thing that I do, like one favorite workflow is after a long session of, like, you know, chatting with the model, guiding in the right direction, I can ask the model, hey, would you recommend packaging some of this information into like a skill? And the model will do that. And you can iterate with the model, like writing that skill, because the skill lives in a folder on your local system. So use the model to write your own skills and bootstrap them. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, I actually saw that one of the most popular skills on the skills marketplace is the skill writer skill. So like a skill that teaches the model how to write other skills, and I use it and it's great. But yeah, you know, kind of switching back to the Opus versus Sonnet discussion. So it's not an exaggeration to say that, you know, Opus 4.5 has almost outsmarted benchmarks at this point. How are you thinking about the future of benchmarks? Like, which ones do you pay attention to? How are they going to change as models continue to evolve seemingly exponentially and maybe surpass even like the limits of those tests?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like everybody's looking at SweBench, TauBench, but those are almost saturated at this point. So we need something new. But when you think about like the software engineer job, what you really want to get to is automating maybe a day in the life of a software engineer. And can you actually do that?
Right.
And if somebody's building benchmarks for that, that's probably the right approach. It's not by coincidence that we're testing and training our models to perform on long-running tasks. That is intentional, and I feel like that's kind of where the puck is heading. It's like having like longer and longer autonomous sessions where you don't have to step in.
I mean, and how do you feel about the kind of models being used to evaluate other models? I think that's one of the trends that we've started to see in some of the automated benchmarking. And still, honestly, I'm not quite sure. Sometimes just interesting results, but it seems to be all over the place. It's not, you can't really call it a benchmark.
Yeah. I mean, I trust those as long as the evaluation task is easier than actually the creation task.
The
right?
Evaluation.
That's kind of like you have to use your judgment there. And in a lot of cases, it's much easier to verify that an answer is correct rather than come up with an answer. And those are the cases where I fully trust the LLM judges.
Fair enough. So, and I guess just looking into the future, I know things are moving really fast, faster than probably any of us even thought, even working in this industry. Like, what are you super excited about for what might be coming next at Anthropic and also in the wider landscape here?
I mean, right now, the only thing that I guess annoys me in my day-to-day is that the model is slow. It's like not instant. If I were to have a magic wand and make the model just return tokens like instantly, I think that would be where I would invest in. So looking forward to that. Maybe there's work happening there that will make these models faster, so I don't have to wait for a response. But I think a lot of the work will be the integration with the rest of the ecosystem. Like how do you integrate with all the systems? Like how do you integrate with Slack? How do you integrate with GitHub and with PR reviews and task managers like Linear? Can you get to a place where that's less clunky, where that's like a little bit more more pleasant? Because right now I feel like there is a lot of effort and you require like a human driver to kind of orchestrate these things. But I would love to get into a place where everything is fully automated for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think one major improvement that's become obvious to me, especially in the last few months, is like you're referencing the speed, but also I feel like the latest models are much better at inferring context that I didn't explicitly say and kind of using context clues to fill out the prompt almost, where I, as a stupid human, couldn't articulate, if that makes any sense. And I think that comes up a lot in the demos I do in these webinars and stuff like that, where I didn't necessarily explicitly articulate that I wanted something, but the model kind of inferred from what I did say that I wanted that, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I'm curious if people in the chat have had that same experience. And then I think maybe for the last question, because we're coming up on time here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, is what are some best practices that Anthropic can recommend for prompt engineering to just get the most deterministic and reliable outputs from Opus and Sonnet in a highly structured coding environment like Kilo?
Yeah, totally. I think prompt engineering is still like kind of where the goal is. And it's evolving. It's different with every model. I think that's the annoying piece. Like every model has its own personality. And when we do have like a new model coming out of the lab and we're the first people to play with it, we kind of like get a sense for its behavior. That's why we publish like a prompt engineering guide every time we release like a major model. And I was part of the Sonnet 4.5 one. And there's other people on my team that are writing these guides for like the Opus models and whatnot. I would say pay attention to those prompting guides. There's a lot of effort that goes into those, and we're really trying to like capture like the model personality and what the best practices are. For these two models, the Opus and Sonnet 4.5. I think what we observe is that they're much more precise. So any error that you have in your system prompt is going to be amplified. So that's a good time. Like we would suggest developers to like, hey, that's a good time to like do spring cleaning and review your prompts and make sure there's no contradictions and make sure the examples are not bad. Because if an example is bad, the model is going to infer from that, just because it's much better at instruction following. I would say that was the major one. And then the other thing that made us happy was the amount of like parallel tool calls that can happen at a given time, and we just leverage that in our system prompts.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Marius, for the answers and the insights. I really appreciate you taking the time. Super excited for whatever's next from Anthropic, and obviously love using Opus and Sonnet myself. So thanks again, and I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you guys for having me. It was good to be here, and yeah, see you next time.
Yeah, see you soon.
Sounds good. And just to let everyone know, Anthropic very generously donated some credits, and we'll be giving them out to everybody who, we'll do sort of a raffle between everyone who attended.
Yep.
So use Opus and Cloud Agents, and we'll pay for it.
Yep. Thanks. And yeah, thanks Anthropic for that. And I just want to quickly shout out the Reddit and Discord if you want to continue the conversation and chat with me or our engineers or people from Kilo about anything you want. Just feel free to join the Reddit and Discord. And Marius also mentioned getting integrated into Slack and GitHub. So I don't know if you saw, but if you're using Slack, we just released Kilo for Slack, which essentially allows you to tag or DM a Kilo Slack bot and make real code changes right there in Slack. It'll spit out a PR that you can, just click on and approve and merge right from inside Slack. So it's honestly changed how we work at Kilo quite a bit. If you use Slack at wherever you're working, feel free to hit me up at this email, which I'll put in the chat, and I'll even help you walk through getting set up if you want. But again, thanks everyone for joining. We're going to do a giveaway, and we'll do we'll pick some random attendees and make sure we distribute, not only the credits we're offering and the t-shirts, but also those graciously donated by Anthropic. So hope to see you all at the next one, which is tomorrow. So this is going to be, I think this is the busiest webinar week we've ever done. It'll be our 4th in a row. We're doing the Kilo show live, which is kind of like our weekly roundup variety show. We'll have guests from all around Kilo join and chat about various topics. We're also going to give away credits and t-shirts there. So, definitely join that. It's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central European tomorrow. And I see someone asking how they can join the giveaway. So we're just going to pick randomly from the attendees that joined today. So you don't have to do anything. Your name's already in the pot. We're just going to pick randomly and give away those credits and t-shirts. So Kilo show tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. And thanks again, everybody. See you soon.